here, and we've had another huge rework of Heist, so there's another huge set of notes to be talking about with Heist. I've prepared a level 81 Heist we're going to run just to set the mood for anyone who hasn't had a chance to play yet since the new change. We'll run through this, and then I'll go through my doc, and there's good points, bad points, stuff I'd like to see changed, stuff I wouldn't like to see changed. We're sort of getting there, I think, but it's still pretty messy, and the community is very split. And I'm sure GGG is very split on this as well. So anyway, let's just run through and kind of see what's what, shall we?
You do know what you're doing yet?
So let's see, what have we got? Pretty long one. Not actually that many boxes. See what the alert level's like. You got much chance to... You haven't got a very good run for lockdown, which is a bit annoying. So there aren't actually that many boxes right next to the thing. So we're just going to turn sound right down so there's no distractions during this. Mostly for my benefit as much as yours. Ooh, ow, those hit very hard. Okay, I should probably turn that down. Right. One thing that I will just say, there's still lots of weird little bugs. I'm going to try not to focus on bugs too much in this video. I will have some bugs that I'll be going over during my doc, but I'm mostly trying to focus on the mechanic stuff. But if you are hoping that this latest patch would have solved a lot of the bugs, there's still plenty of bugs and still plenty of problems. The most immediate change you will notice going from the last patch to this one is there is a much greater emphasis on gaining alert when it comes to opening chests. With the last patch, it was very easy to get absolutely every single chest without even trying. And then if you somehow missed the change before that, the last patch also completely removed the alert generation from guards. So you can see that we're basically full on alert meter, having gotten just over halfway. Like if we got that chest, that would fill the entire alert bar. So at this point, you would either piece back out, because some people do that, they just go back to the start, or you then go ahead unlocking everything and you try and set up a big lockdown thing. Since we have got Isla here, we'll go for some lockdown stuff. Throw the traps, just kill the mobs. So we'll try and set up a bit of a mad dash, and it seems to be like that's what this patch is trying to promote, is they want players to be using the lockdown timer and really just kind of going for it, rather than just get every single box every single time. This does mean that you're going to be doing more backtracking, since you're generally going to want to go ahead unlocking everything, and some people really hate backtracking. But, you know, it is what it is. So, start with opening this. Right. Because we've got Isla, I don't actually have that much of a rush. Well, leave that on the way back. Okay, and let's just try and get out of here without dying, because if we do that, that'd be slightly embarrassing in the video. That was no good. One complaint I did have after the last patch was it felt like density had gone much lower. Like it just generally felt like there were way less enemies in here. They've definitely gone back on that. At least it feels like the density has gone up, and I've spoken to a lot of people and they've said the same thing. Another big thing they've changed is you'll notice less like instant flurries of attacks coming through doorways. So if you were a true name lock god gamer, you're far less likely to get instantly gibbed running through doors. All right, and let's just get out, and then we can go to my talking points. Brilliant. So that's the loot we end up getting out of the thing in the end. Now let's talk about the league. Right, so the good things that have changed from this patch that I particularly like. Cast was nerfed. So previously Cast was by far the best rogue. His perk used to reduce the alert gained by all chests by 35%. Now it is just the rewards chest, so just the big ones, not the small ones. Ideally, we want to have a situation where there's no like easy, obvious pick, and every single rogue feels engaging and interesting to take. We're not there yet, and that's something I'll touch on more later, but we're slightly closer because before cast was just silly. Reduced alert sources are now multiplicative instead of additive. So before, one thing you used to be able to do is if you had a grand heist and you had the option to take cast, for example, 3 times. So like, let's say you had a lockpicking, a perception, and an agility job, and you could fill all of them. You would get 100% reduced alert from opening chests, like any gear equipment, just taking cast 3 times. This was very strong whenever you could stack up cast, Talina, or Nanette. It would just get very silly very quickly. Personally, I think you should never be able to take the same rogue more than once in a grand heist, but that's a separate issue. But yeah, by making it multiplicative, it killed some cheese setups, which is good. And this also makes group composition more interesting, and it's very clear that GGG is trying to push having this disperse this very different cast of characters and us using each one individually. As I showed and as I talked about, you're getting less random one-shots by doorways because they've staggered attacks better. The difficulty also seems much fairer when it comes to on-death effects. I've had no issues with on-death effects since the patch, and a lot of people I've spoken to have said the same thing. And as I said also, it feels like monster density's gone up. Rogue gear drop rate is noticeably being buffed. I'm in SSF. I've got a little stockpile going on here. All my rogues are fully geared. My rogues were mostly geared before this, but I've been doing a fair amount of the mechanic and I've got them all geared up, and yeah, seems pretty good. Right. The main point, and the reason why most of us are watching this video. So, huge sweeping balance changes, like the 3 different iterations of Heist we've had over the last week, is incredibly disorienting for players. I can't imagine how it must feel to be someone who only plays maybe an hour or so a night and is trying to adjust to Heist, especially while knowing that other players have gotten rich abusing the old systems. I think this is a big reason why there's been such extreme backlash, is as soon as you start to get used to one thing, the rug is just pulled out from under you. And especially when you knew that people, were doing the 100% reduced alert reduction, spamming lockpicking missions, that will feel particularly bad. And there's also the case of, there are a lot of people who were saving their heists for performance improvements, so they were like purposely not running them, waiting for them to come stable. They then had a patch which didn't fix the stability and also nerfed the reward quite heavily. There's also an issue of players who've been investing into rolling their rogue gear to see the systems change multiple times. This will probably continue to change if they make any more changes. I've seen a lot of people swapping over to like lock down timer stacking now. But yeah, it really sucks if you're investing into a build, because you're basically investing into rogue builds, to then see that stuff change. There's a reason why GGG doesn't like doing skill changes mid-league. They don't like screwing with people's investment into their characters. Well, these rogues are basically characters we're investing into, and that setup can feel completely wasted. Performance. Now, this is case by case. For me, my performance is worse after this patch. My performance was pretty good in the second iteration of Heist. Repository Grand Heist would still have the issue with the final door not opening. That was only repository as far as I'm aware. So I was just running all of my Grand Heists but repository, so I'd saved up quite a few of them. I've lost entire Grand Heist wings to hard crashes. I could still enter the Grand Heist after the crash, but whenever I went into that wing, it would just crash again, and it would basically just brick like a third of my Grand Heist, which obviously, when you've invested loads of markers into that, just isn't good. I've also lost multiple contracts to crashes, and that's both before and post lockdown, from interacting with chests, trying to interact with doors, just walking around. I'm not sure what causes it, but I've had bad stability. It's also still possible to leave your Grand Heist and end up in another instance. That was something they tried to fix, and it seemed to be fixed, where you can do a Grand Heist, come out, use your stash, then pop back in. People are still getting kicked into the wrong instances, so that is still an issue that still needs to be addressed. The problem with having the rogue hub have multiple players in there is you have this. If there was a solo instance, this wouldn't be an issue, but anyway. The changes to alert gain on boxes and the nerfs to stacking alert reduction is very noticeable on rogues without innate alert reduction. I'm not sure if having alert reduction on rogues is a mistake in the first place, but this makes running contracts feel very inconsistent in terms of reward. Not only do contracts have wildly different lengths, some are just far longer than others, some have way more chests than others, But then when you've also got this huge disparity in the amount of alert gain you have on each rogue, it can just make heists feel really strange. You can go from getting every single chest to getting 70% of the chests to sometimes you're not even getting half of the chests. It can feel very, very bizarre. And it's also one of those things where, as I said with the lockdown thing, depending on how the chests are distributed, you can't even really utilize your lockdown sometimes because the chests are just in the wrong part of the zone, and it just doesn't feel great. The rogue loot tables. So each job has different loot tables associated to them. So previously, lockpicking only had access to currency and fragments, and they've basically shuffled stuff around. Generally, the more lucrative jobs feel less rewarding. Now, nerfing specific rogue loot tables isn't necessarily an issue. However, when you combine that with the alert changes by making the alert go up more on chests and then nerfing also alert reduction stacking, you've basically triple nerfed the system, which is incredibly jarring because the last version you could get everything no problem every time, and now that's been triple nerfed. It still is rewarding. Some people are saying it isn't rewarding at all. I still find the mechanic rewarding, but it's like a very extreme nerf. It's very extreme. Rogue AI is still a problem. I was hoping that when we could go to just killing all the enemies, Rogue AI would be better, but no, Rogue AI is still a very big problem. I regularly find myself running around trying to reset rogues to open doors. This can be very dangerous because this is a very rippy mechanic, and also when you're trying to use lockdown, this can get even more frustrating. I've even seen Octavian, of all people, shouting at poor Niles on stream. It was incredibly upsetting, and if anyone is ever raging and it's Octavian, you know something's gone wrong. Sentry totems. So in perception missions, there are totems that rapidly increase your alert level and are very hard to spot. A lot of people don't even know that sentry totems are meant to be a thing. They'll just be like, why did my alert bar go up? I thought they changed that. So yeah, there are just these random totems that you don't notice, which will make your alert go up. Now, they're basically invisible unless you've got a perception guy nearby who then sees them and then you can damage them. They either need to be way more visible or removed because they don't feel like they fit with this current iteration of Heist. With the old version of Heist, where we were punished for engaging with every single pack, then it makes sense, right? But it seems like now they're trying to put all the emphasis on the player choice and which chests we do or don't open. So then just having these random totems that you can barely even see, it goes completely against that. So it just kind of feels like a remnant of an older system, which is kind of what they are. So if they're going to stick around, make them more noticeable. Marker cost. This is more of an SSF problem, or people who just trade less, but marker cost should probably either be nerfed, or the marker drop rate buffed. With the poor stability losing Grand Heist to DCs, this feels particularly punishing because not only have you lost your Grand Heist, but you've also wasted a bunch of markers. Then you've spent all day stockpiling all these markers to go run your Grand Heists. Your Grand Heist crashes. You've lost all the markers, so you've lost on multiple fronts. Even in a best case scenario of everything running smoothly, markers can feel very restrictive unless you're buying from other players, like I said. In SSF, the numbers have felt pretty hit or miss. I've wanted to chain a bunch of Grand Heists and I haven't been able to. If that's intended, fair enough, and I guess it's on me for playing SSF, but I thought I'd mention it. With the latest difficulty changes, Heist feels much fairer, but it is still very rippy. There were a few close calls in that one, for example. While I enjoy this change and this challenge, Heist gives very low XP. Which makes the mechanic unappealing for softcore players who are trying to push levels, as they are likely to lose more XP than they gain, especially if they're in the high 90s. And hardcore players are likely to lose their characters completely, and since they're not gaining much XP, they're not getting the opportunity to progress their character, get more life nodes. Even if they want to really engage with the mechanic, well, because they're not getting XP, they can't progress. They've got to map to get the levels, so then go backwards to then do their low-level contracts. It just feels a bit disconnected. There probably should be more XP in there. Contraband. I mentioned this in this last video, but contraband cheesing is a real problem. So currently you can leave a heist before clicking the curio or starting lockdown at any time, and you'll instantly wipe contraband status from your items. So let's say that, I picked up 4 Chaos Orb from the first chest. I could just leave. I don't need to come back. I just need to take the entrance, and then I can walk back in, and it will clear the contraband completely. This is very abusable. So this is great for players with unstable internet or for securing just a clutch valuable drop. You're sacrificing a little bit of time, but you're securing the item. However, this can be an issue. So I was having a conversation with Grimro, who's been really using Heist a lot, and he's been trying to min-max it as much as he can in Softcore Trade League. And apparently a very dominant strategy that a lot of the like big economy guys have been doing is they only click chests, and they always leave before triggering lockdown. They never actually go for markers. They only go for the reward chest. So they get all their chests, and they leave before setting off the alarm. This means they completely bypass the risk portion of the mechanic, because they're skipping the entire scary bit at the end, and the only thing they're losing out on is markers, but markers are very accessible in a trade league. So yeah, they're getting all the reward with none of the risk. This just doesn't seem right. So what would I like to see change? This is just a few Tarke suggestions. They're probably terrible, but why not? A reasonable chunk of raw XP granted at the end of each successful heist when you leave with the artifact. This promotes actually finishing a full heist rather than cheesing with the previous strategy. This would reward players with direct character progression for engaging with the league mechanics. This would be great for people who want to progress in softcore, and also great for hardcore players who are engaging with the rippy mechanic. And it could even offer a cool new leveling strategy for the league where players race through heists as quickly as possible, skipping reward chests and instead trying to farm XP. So instead of trying to get every single chest, now you're just trying to be efficient and just trying to get as many markers per hour to get the XP that way. And it could just be fun. It's kind of like how when you do a betrayal and you get that big chunk of XP, and it always feels really satisfying when you level up after a betrayal assassination. Be that kind of a vibe. For me, I find the lockdown portion of Heist one of the most enjoyable parts of the league. With the second version of Heist, lockdown was mostly worthless. With this system, lockdown is much more valuable, but with the wild distribution of chests, as I talked about earlier, it can feel very hit or miss. I propose a system where the amount of chests is not changed, but instead less chests spawn towards the start of Heist and more towards the middle and end. This would make using lockdown far more engaging, would promote riskier gameplay, and would decentivize contraband choosing, because you'd have to run further from the chest to get back out. So if you've got to go all the way to the end to get the chests, then it's much more tempting to like, oh, I'm going to click up all the small chests around here as well, and also get the markers. Lockdown duration may have to be rebalanced though, since it's currently possible to achieve very high lockdown timers. I haven't been gearing for it, and I can get like 40-second lockdown timers, and I was speaking to Octavian, he said he can get close to 2 minutes with the Isla. So yeah, that might need to change. Rogue perks in general. I'm not sure if having multiple rogues that interact with alert is a good idea. As previously mentioned, it makes Heist feel very inconsistent when you go from using alert reduction rogues, those without. Meanwhile, we have rogues like Huck, whose, yeah, perk is basically meaningless. It doesn't feel very good. So here are just some fun perk ideas that I think could have been interesting. Maybe increased effective rogue gear. This would also make sense for Huck, who used to be a soldier. This would make him scale better the more time you put into it. Makes it kind of interesting like Vindiri. So it's like the more you invest, the more powerful he becomes. Adds more scalability to the system. Or maybe having the ability to re-roll reward chests, because then when you see the talisman chest, you're not just like, talisman chest, boo. You're like, maybe I could roll that into something more interesting. And also, just as a final thing, alert overlay. Now, this is a very niche thing, but we keep seeing leagues where GG make these HUDs that fill up the part of the screen where streamers want to put their cam. Where am I actually meant to put my cam? Like, I put it here and I cover up all my skills. I put it in the middle of the screen. If I put it over here, then I'm covering, like, the middle, this is Sacramount. This space here, yeah. Put it at the top. Just make it smaller. I don't know. But yeah, this is a small thing. Alert overlays, streamers. This is a very streamer-driven game. Make it safe. I don't know. Things I hope doesn't change. All right. Challenge. I really enjoy how dangerous Heist can be. I agree the random one-shots need to go. Getting rid of the on-death effects. Making them fairer. Trying to limit the random one-shots. Great. But please don't remove the challenge. The challenge is fun. I also wouldn't want to go back to getting every single chest without any thought or investment into setting up rogue builds. If someone's really invested into it and they're getting every single chest because they've been creative with their lockdown timer, I think that's fun. I think that's a really good system. We might have maybe taken a step backwards too far for some players. The general consensus I've seen on places like Reddit and in stream is people preferred it being very lucrative and very easy to get everything. But it feels like we're maybe sort of headed in the right direction. And just finally, with the crazy whiplash we've had bouncing from one extreme of Heist to another, like three very different versions those of a week, maybe it'd be best for GGG to take a week to themselves to decide what direction they want to go in before we see any more huge changes. That would mean we'd be left with this version of Heist, which isn't the most popular, but I think it might maybe be better if we just have some more considered changes rather than just extreme changes. But anyway, I'm Tarke. Let me know what you think of Heist. What was your favorite iteration of Heist and why? Have a good day. Bye-bye.